just a little bit of a technical issue here with the Starlink phased out. It just came back in. So 7:02, go ahead and start the meeting. It looks like we've got all 4 zoning board members and Jesse James online as well. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I don't think so. Oh. Yeah. All right. So, well, I don't see that we have any public comments. Sarah, did we have anybody else that asked any public comments? Okay. Then we'll jump on down to the new business to discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the January 15th zoning board meeting. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? Any additions, changes, corrections?
Jesse James has a couple comments when it's proper.
Go right ahead, Jesse. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. On the very first big paragraph on page 1, right below the dark print, 3rd line down, I would like to know where it says that the zoning board has no jurisdiction on the town property. And then on page 3, the comments are about, does a building permit go with a new owner if the property sells? And I think that fits in where we've mentioned before, buyer beware. And I think a new owner, whether it's a OWTS or a building permit or whatever, would assume the current building permits. And then on down on page 3, first paragraph below the dark motion.
For a second. So I'm sorry. So back to your first comment, was it a question or was it an addition? I'm unclear on what it is exactly that you wanted to happen.
Well, in the minutes, we did not state where we got the information that the zoning board had no jurisdiction over city property. And so I was wanting it to be stated where we find that information.
Okay, where did you find the information?
I have no idea. It was just reported at the meeting that the zoning board, I think Roger may report it, that we had no jurisdiction over town property.
Okay, well, if there wasn't a reference given in the meeting, the minutes really are just to reflect what was said in the meeting. So if it wasn't stated that that came from a specific place, I can't really add it in.
All right, well, it's just something that maybe we need to make a note for new business on the March meeting.
And then your second comment, you said something about buyer beware. Is that on page 2?
Page 3, please. Very
Okay.
top line. Right in the middle of the top line, it says then question mark.
Okay,
And I think we stated that it was buyer beware. And I don't know if we stated precisely or not, but I feel like a open building permit that's not been completed ought to be passed on to the new owner.
does anybody have that same recollection? My recollection was not that that was explicitly discussed.
I don't recall specifically.
Okay. Jesse, it doesn't say in the zoning code, for example, if somebody gets a building permit and then it's unfinished and then the property changes hands, there's nothing that addresses that currently. So
I believe that's correct, Sarah. So probably we need to bring this up later in the meeting, when we're making, suggestions for our, code, references to the trustees.
Okay,
But
so
moving on down then, in the middle of page 3, the dark print motion, the next paragraph, the very last with requests for update period. And I think we should add as stated in section 17H.
So it says, there's not a violation except for, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna add for section 17H.
Yes. And on the top of page 4, the very top line, in the middle of that line, it says closed. We never did discuss or figure out how we knew a project was closed or a building permit was completed unless the building inspector had a final inspection and said, yes, everything's done that was requested on the permit. I don't know when it's closed.
Okay, so I'm unclear again, how do you want the minutes to be changed? Because the minutes reflect what the discussion was at the time of the meeting. If you have additional thoughts, then I would suggest that those could be discussed in this meeting, but I can't change the minutes from a past meeting with new discussion.
That's fine. Just keep our nose clean, Sarah. But these are things that have concerned me when I was going through these minutes.
Okay, so the question is, though, do you feel that the minutes are incomplete based on the discussion that occurred at the meeting? Because I can add something if it was discussed at the meeting.
Right.
Yes. Well, I know we discussed the buyer beware that I was talking about on the first line of page 3, but I don't know if we ever arrived at a definition or anything that way.
So Jesse, what I've done, I've just added a bullet point under the zoning code proposal revisions, a bullet point for what happens to a building permit on the sale of a property, and a bullet point for when is a permit closed. So I don't know if we'll get to it tonight, but it'll be on our list of items for the zoning code that we will discuss.
Fantastic. Glad we got it where it needs to be. Thank you.
Sarah, I do have, I have a couple of additions, and it's on, figure out what page it is. It's on page 4, under the discuss and vote on zoning code proposal revisions.
Okay.
Under the different ones that we talked about, I know we didn't take a formal vote. I think we did a hand vote, and I think it would be appropriate to show that hand vote under those items. So section 20, they're actually all a hand vote of 4-0 for each of the items.
If I recall right, Mr. Pinalto, we started out to discuss and vote each bullet, and Sarah shared with us we did not have to have a formal motion second and all that, just so that we had a board agreement on the things that we requested to the trustees.
You're correct. I agree. But I would like the minutes just to show what the hand vote was on each of the items. I know that there wasn't a motion and a second on each item, just a simple hand vote.
All right, I got those added.
Okay. Roger, did you have any changes?
No.
Mr. Herman. Galen.
I was not here.
Didn't want to leave you out.
Okay.
All right. So I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I so move. Jesse James.
To have a second. So we've got a motion to accept the amended minutes from Jesse, a second by Mr. Herman. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Gayla, I believe, abstained.
I can't vote. Yeah, I wasn't here.
If you review the minutes.
Oh,
I did review. This is
The
not
rule is if you review the minutes, you can vote.
Hello? I did review the minutes and, as far as I know, this seems to have reflected what was said. So that would be okay with me. if We approve.
Okay. So passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and vote on zoning code proposal revisions for the recommendations to the Board of Trustees. We're definitely going to limit this to 60 minutes. We might be frozen at the end of 60 minutes, so we might go shorter. And we've added a couple more items, so we actually might, well, we will probably discuss in March some of the additional items as well. So the first one on the agenda is the renewal of building permits beyond the 2-year completion and an update fees, and to update the fee schedule to reflect building permit renewal fee, section 17H. Anybody want to open with any discussion on renewal of building permits beyond the 2-year completion as it's currently stated in the zoning code?
Mr. Chairman, in the past, I know Roger and Gayla have both indicated 2 years is too short of a time frame, and I agree with that. I would recommend to expedite and put it down to 3 years, please. And then now you guys discuss it and kick it around.
Okay, so Jesse says move it to 3-year. Excuse me, completion time. Gayla?
The county has 5 years, and I think for Pitkin especially, 5 years should be as short as we give them, because some people only get up here 2 or 3 weeks this summer to work on their projects. It just takes time. Through COVID, we witnessed materials not being available. That's still the case in many cases. Sometimes you have to wait a year for windows. I really do think we should give 5 years, and the county does, so that's not out of line. You just remodel or build something. Ed, how do you feel about time frame?
So I did a complete remodel on the house. Was within the 2 years. What I'm okay with the 2 years, the way we currently are, is that it's 2 years, and all we ask for is an update once a year on what your progress is, what your plan is. I don't have an issue extending it somewhat. When I look at the state electrical and plumbing permits, those are both 1 year that you have with the state. And with the state, if you go to the inspector prior to the expiration date, tell them what your plan is, they will extend it at no charge for a year. So you can get 2 years pretty easily. Now you go beyond 2 years, it may be more difficult with the electrical and plumbing permits anyway. So as far as Gunnison County, I didn't look specifically at Gunnison County. I was under the impression that it was 1 year, but I can't say that for sure.
Compromise and do 3.
I don't know why we couldn't give 5. I still maintain that. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're gonna dawdle.
No, I agree. I don't think it means they'll dawdle. But we've also seen how a 40 by 60 building can be constructed and dried in less than 6 months in this county, within 3 miles of right here.
Well,
So
if it's a do-it-yourself project, it's
I,
not always.
I-
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I agree. But I still, I think we're pretty lenient on the permits, in that all we ask in the zoning code today is to give us an update once a year what your plan is. So. Roger, do you have any input?
Yes, I think we should leave it alone. Once a year input is all we need. We don't need our building permits to expire. I've, over the period of my experience in building homes from, near Chicago, all over the place, Walport, Oregon, 30, 40 permits in Gunnison County alone, almost that many in Quartz Creek properties, at least a dozen in Pitkin. Yeah, none of them had expiration dates, ever. I don't know where you're coming from, that a building permit expires. It's much like a birth certificate. It goes with the house. It has a set of plans. It has a plot plan. It has everything in it that certifies a building has been built on that piece of property. And it's not going to expire. In the building portion of it, we have no control over anymore. Most contractors have no idea if they're going to get building materials tomorrow or not, or if they're going to get electricians, plumbers. It's getting so tight, in Gunnison County, about 1/2 of the people in the construction business now live in Montrose and commute into Gunnison County because they can't afford to live here. I don't know where you're coming from, that, if you hire, a firm from Colorado Springs or something to come in and set up a metal building, they can do it in 2 weeks. But that doesn't have anything to do with building a home, or someone, trying to do it themselves. Forget it. I don't think we need to add more misery on top of our building permit process, unless, our building inspector finds that, keeping up with all these things requires something. I would like to hear from Tom.
So just Roger, I want to comment on one of the things you said about where anybody's coming from with a building permit that expires. First off, in the current zoning code under 17H, it does state that if a building project cannot be completed within 2 years, property owner must provide written progress reports yearly, or more often at discretion of Board of Zoning Adjustments. I will say that with that statement, we have asked, I've sent it to Eddie Balch, to the mayor. The mayor has sent the entire zoning code to the town attorney to see what the legalities are and to see if it does in fact expire or not. So I don't know the answer to that, but I also know that on some of the building permits that I've seen, at least on the copies that are normally given to the property owner, it states that this building permit expires 2 years from the issuance date. So I think we have some things there we got to have clarified as to if the permit does in fact expire. And my comment is that if it doesn't expire, then why do we want any updates on it? And that's just an open comment I have. So, and I think the intent when 17H was written in 2022 was that after 2 years, if you're not done with it, you need to give us some updates. Does that mean it expires? I can't answer that. That's for the attorney to give us some legal advice on. And I think that's where we sit with that right now.
I'm ready to watch something if you want
Is that Pete?
to. I apologize. I thought my voice was off.
Oh, okay.
May I make a comment, though?
Let me make sure the board is done commenting and then I'll come and I'll open it up to you, Pete. Just give me just 30 seconds. Ed, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'm just a little bit unclear on, we issue a building permit and years ago we did away with the certificate of occupancy, which in my mind gave closure to the permit. Should we look into maybe bringing back the certificate of occupancy?
My comment on that is that we've got to have something to finalize a building permit. And currently, I don't know if we have that. And again, I'm gonna refrain or hold back on that until we hear from the town attorney some recommendations on that. Pete, would you like to add something?
Am I on now?
You are.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, my only comment about this is that I believe you're doing the right thing by seeking advice from the attorney. I certainly think that in the future, if the zoning board feels it's important that there should be some, finish date for building permits, you could put that in the new, proposed zoning code. I just question whether or not you can retroactively, expire them, and that's up to the attorney, I think, and or charge a renewal fee, since most people up to this point acquired building permits in good faith that, it was good for 2 years and then they could update the zoning board if asked, but there was nothing about expiration. So I guess that's my comment. I think you need to seek out that legal advice and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Is there
Mr.
anyone
Chairman?
else?
Jess here.
Hi, Jess.
I'm in agreement with what Pete's saying, and I went back to the 01 ordinances and the 2012 ordinances, and this paragraph is almost identical word for word. But my suggestion is that we table this bullet point till we get input, possibly from our attorney a week from tonight.
I'll add one more thing to that, is that in looking back just in the 2012 zoning code, there were a number of different inspections or final inspections on the permits that was used to determine when the various portions of the permit were completed. And I question if we shouldn't re-implement something like that again.
Are you speaking of Appendix A?
Not specifically, no. Just that I know in the 2012 code, when I looked at it, and I don't have it right in front of me, there were a number of different checklists for different permits. And from whether it's foundation or whether it's framing, of course, electrical and plumbing, we don't have to worry too much about because we defer that to the state. But I guess just to add to your comment, Jesse, before, was how do we finalize a building permit, whether it's a foundation permit or a framing permit? Do we have some type of a inspection checklist, I guess? And I'm gonna put Tom on the spot to see what his thoughts are on that, if you don't mind.
You're gonna need
Okay, this is Tom Gibb. So once more, please clarify what I'm on the spot for.
On just what you feel as the building inspector having final inspection checklists for whatever the permit is for, whether it's foundation or whether it's framing. So you know, I guess if it would help you to determine when that permit is complete.
Well, there's several examples I could throw out. You can get a permit for a portion of the building project. In other words, if you say, you know, I gotta get some retaining walls up here to hold this ground until I can get around to doing something later on, then you can get a building permit
For that portion,
for that portion.
right,
What did you do? So you can kind of piecemeal
right,
to some degree, your building project. And, I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that sometimes there are advantages to doing things that way. So you brought up the point regarding, those things that do fall to the state. And I don't follow through on a state trim inspection to see if it got done right. You know, the switches and the lights.
oh, okay, I got you, for electrical, right,
So those things don't fall on me.
right,
What falls on me is when you dig that hole, so. I'll just talk a minute here.
Get
What-
closer to the
Once
microphone.
upon a time, building permits in Pitkin were different than now. People would come in and spend a couple summers and build their summer only type cabin. Things have progressed. Architects have gone grander and larger scale houses, multi-million-dollar things. That even in the best of times, you're still pushing limits at 2 years. Especially if you have trouble getting employees and materials. And so the permit form that we currently use, I don't know how old it is. And we have gone through multiple changes, and yet this permit still says right there in the fine print, 2/3 of the way down the page, that this permit becomes invalid. That's the word it used, after 2 years. So you asked what I look at. I look at foundations, as in footings. Are they the right depth? Are they the right width? Are they got enough steel in them? Then I look at knee walls, same thing. I have to look at those again. Depth, width, the amount of steel in them, amount of vertical rods. And these days, you also look to make sure you have a neutral rod. You know what that is. That's your unified ground that everybody ties into. Okay, so then that's up. Now, with architectural designs that we have today and the engineered lumber and the TJIs and all that other stuff, this stuff comes in all spec'd and stamped by a Colorado approved architect. It's not real hard to keep up with this. You go over, you look at it and say, yep, it's like the print, it looks good, and the engineer says this is great. And only rarely do I ever have an exception with what the engineer does. So, but anyway, so I look at walls. Are they 2 by 6 walls? If they're tall walls, are they fire blocking, proper locations? Do they have the proper headers? I mean, you know, if you're familiar with building, this is straightforward stuff. And then they get their insulation. And you have to you check and make sure that they got, and things keep changing. Right now, I think we're still at R29 and R30 or something in the roof, but that's getting ready to change. And the interesting thing is, even though that's where we are, almost everything is coming spec higher because architects know what is coming. And so I go and I look at buildings and they got R50 plus in their ceilings. And they've got, you know, spray foam and what they call flash and batt, which is a spray foam with the fiberglass cover over that. And that has to do with fires and other things. So that gets done. The drywallers come in, they drywall this thing. They get it all cleaned up and painted. The electrician comes in, he does the trim package. The plumber comes in, he does the whatever they do. The cabinet guys come in and put in the stuff. So mostly with the type of construction that we see going into Pitkin today, it is all architecturally designed, subcontracted out to contractors who know what they're doing. It's not real hard to follow along. It's not hard to keep track of it. Once in a while, we get some guys doing their own thing. I have to go over and take a look at them, maybe advise them a little bit. Most of the stuff we see that falls into that category, we have seen done so many times that we already know what the engineering on this is going to look like. It's not a problem. So, I think the answer to your question you're looking for probably is, what do I think about 2 years? And I think the suggestion of 3 is not all bad. What else would you like to hear from me?
Well, where I was going with the inspection checklist, and I ask you because you're the building inspector,
Yeah.
but you probably won't always be the building inspector.
Well, I'm hoping that's the case.
Well, so I'm looking down the road at the next building inspector that would come along. Would it help that person to have some type of a checklist, like you said for foundations, where you said the different things that you check? There's simply, it's listed and it's a check mark.
The yellow card that we give out on the big projects.
Uh-huh.
So footings get checked off, knee walls get checked off, framing gets checked off.
Okay.
That stuff gets checked off. When the electricians come in and they do their thing, they write their name and they write their.
Right.
And so most of this gets checked off. So Ed Herman here brought up the question regarding certificates of occupancy that we decided we would no longer hand out unless a person needed it for their insurance or their mortgage. And if they want one, that can be done. With that certificate of occupancy, I have a very big stack. The final inspection checklist forms that have got more stuff on it than you can check stick. And it can be done. It's without the certificate of occupancy, it's kind of seems a little bit moot. Because when I haven't been up to your place recently, but to walk through a house, it doesn't take very much to see what's going on. And the things that you need to look at have almost always been looked at, and the only difference is now they're covered up with drywall. So, when I did a walkthrough, I give you an example down at Susie Messler, and I've done walkthrough after walkthrough after walkthrough. And you know, got to see it all, from stud to insulation to wiring to plumbing to you name it, I saw it all. They're halfway through with the drywall and I see that. They're spraying and I see that. Been in the crawl space and looked around at that. I was curious. So when she finally gets done, and she has, and she's got her railings out there all finished up and her steps, and it may be there's a little more groundwork to be done outside, but it has all been seen and is all fine. So in terms of a checklist, the checklist is we only provide a paper trail for someone down the road.
Right.
Who wanted to come back and say, well, did you check this or did you check that? And that's the only value of a checklist per se that I see, especially in the big, more commercial oriented jobs where you've got architects and contractors and subcontractors and so forth. So if the question is, what do I look at? I look at everything I can. Do I comment on things from time to time? Yes, I do. Once in a while, you'll come into a place and you'll say, you know, you've got this space here and you can't leave that open. You got to get some of that fire foam and get that space here. As far as I am personally concerned, I do see with what is coming down the pipe, probably by 2026, the checklist should probably be on somebody's radar. I don't know that we need it right now.
Right.
I don't. I just by way of info, Gunnison County has been running on the 2015 building code until January 1st. They upped it to, we don't have to do
21.
that.
I agree. I know.
We don't have
I
to
know.
do that.
We don't.
In fact,
Don't say we want to do that.
we're on 2012, let's just stay with it for a bit. The jump to 2015 causes, and if you're familiar with that, you'll know some of the issues that brings along. Yeah. So I would, my thought process in all of this is hold off as long as you can until the state finally makes you do something. And then, you know, you don't have a choice. You have to do it. I think our buildings in town, the ones that I have seen in the last couple of years have all been top-notch, first rate, and well proven. And the concept of walking through them after the fact, and it's all done with a checklist to look at this or look at that. Well, all that stuff's covered up. I'm not real big on the final checklist unless you need it to go along with the certificate of occupancy. If we decide we're going to do that, then we probably ought to go.
So if I could add, I'll add a couple of my thoughts to what you said with the checklist, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. I like the idea of checklists throughout the process, like you said, not just the final, but throughout. But more importantly, in my mind, that if we do that throughout, and then we know, okay, this is the final, this is the end, we have finalized that building permit. So if questions ever come up in the future, is this permit done? Is this building done or is it not? Yes, it was done because we did these inspections, we did the final inspection and it was done. That's what I like about it.
On the checklist throughout thing, I agree that a check throughout the entire system needs to be done. Documenting that in a way that it lasts somewhere in somebody's file, maybe a little more difficult. I will tell you that the yellow cards that you see around periodically, you got to take care of those things, or they're fade out and gone.
Yeah.
And so I used to, back before they changed the pay schedule, I used to keep track of what I did and what I saw when I went to look at the building. So went over the foundation, went over, or the footings, went over and it took this amount of time. Went over and looked at the knee wall. And then after that, you know, I went over and looked at the board joist and the subfloor and the 2x6 walls on 16 inch. And I kind of kept track of it. That was for me to demonstrate to myself the amount of time you actually spend doing this. Not so much for record keeping because. Yeah. So, whatever you decide you would like to see in the future, I would be careful not to overload your buildings. Because it's not going to be me always. And it has to be, it may be, and I would not be surprised with the things that I see coming along with this zero carbon footprint plan, this energy efficiency plan, whatever. Pitkin is likely to have to phone me up for a paid full-time building inspector practice. Awesome. So whatever that means, and I don't know what that means. In fact, there's a lot of things out there that I don't know what they mean. And because I do not know what they mean, I can read the words, but I don't know how it's going to play out. And so, unlike Gunnison, who just jumped right in and said, yep, we're going to go with the 2021, I'm on the other end of the scale. I'm cautious. You know, until they make me do it, I'm going to drag my feet, kicking and screaming, and keep it as practical as possible. Because the 2012 IBC code is a solid piece of work. It's as solid as can be. It's good code. So anyway, whatever recommendations you make, I would suggest, and I hate to do this, I would suggest you take a look at some of the final inspection checklists that are out there and some of the high-end cities, and then in some of the what shall I say, lesser municipalities. We do have towns in Pitkin that have no building
In Colorado.
in Colorado.
Yeah.
They have some, they don't have a building code.
Right.
It turns out in the future, there may be some advantage to that.
Yeah.
And it has crossed my mind in my reading because, you know, I read through here, and except for those few towns that have no building code, they'll be accepted. They don't have to meet all this stuff coming down the road. I'm not going, well, now, wait a minute. Pitkin's practically packed full. What if we just got rid of this? We wouldn't be stuck with it. But, you know, I've only got a couple of years of this left, so I can think those kind of things. And I've rambled on here, I'm sorry. And wasted time. Any other questions?
No, I don't have any more. I don't have any more questions for you now. But I do appreciate the insight on various, on the length a permit should be, and then the whole process of the inspections.
Okay.
Sarah told me I don't get close enough to the mic, so she's gonna remind me once in a while. No, thank you. Thank you very much. So going back to our original bullet point of the renewal of building permits beyond 2-year completion, Jesse proposed that we table this until after the Board of Trustee meeting next week. So for us, if we table until March, to see if we have some insight from the town attorney. I am perfectly fine with that. I'd hate to start making decisions on something without knowing the facts. So I'm okay with that. Ed, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Roger, you okay with that?
Yes,
Galen?
Yes.
And Jesse, you suggested it, so
Yes.
unless you change your mind. And just for the record on that one, I'm not dead set that it has to be 2 years. I'm okay with 3 years. But we'll bring that back after we have more information. All right, then the next item is a demolition permit for the demolition of a structure. And then to update the fee schedule to reflect the fees for demolition permit in section 17. Jesse, I know you had some discussion, I believe, with the mayor regarding that. Would you like to bring that up?
Yeah, yes, sir. A month or two ago, when we started talking about making some updates to the current 2022 ordinances, he mentioned then that one thing we've overlooked in all of these ordinances in the last 20 years is possibility of demolition. And it is getting to be a hotter topic as we get more state, federal, and county controls, especially on lead paint and asbestos, on smoke, on dust, other things that are probably listed in our nuisance ordinance. And he thought we better be giving some thought to this, and also as to how to control the debris that might be accumulated from the destruction of a building. And we also talked about possibility of 3 different costs for the permit, that they might be based on the volume or the quantity of rubbish to be removed. And so possibly garages and accessory buildings would be a lesser fee, possibly a residential would be in the middle somewhere. And there's maybe a kitchen or some other things that have to be reckoned with. And he felt like it would be probably falling under the building inspector and or the zoning board of adjustments. So that's the reason I asked to put that on the agenda.
Trying to write notes, so. Okay. So, do you have any other input from any zoning board members on demolition permit?
well, I would like to comment.
Okay, Roger, go ahead.
Unless the town has, got some plans for demolition, how to get rid of the building or whatever, the person that's gonna demolish the building is gonna have to take care of that. I don't know if they need a permit from the town to tell them how to do it, if we don't know how to do it. I mean, are we gonna have a set of plans where to haul this stuff to, what kind of material? I mean, if we come up with something so we can help them with their demolition, then yeah, giving them a permit, giving them advice, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what a building department does. Tells them what codes to, they have to fulfill, whatever. If we're going to, dig into this demolition thing to the point that we can tell them where to take hazardous waste, asbestos, all this kind of stuff, then fine. But you're gonna have to find someone that's gonna do all that. Otherwise, it's just adding expense to an already very, very expensive project, which is any kind of demolition of a building, short of just throwing a match in it. And we don't want that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment, and Roger's quite on key there. I was so tickled when Peter and Linda Cole were wanting to do away with the modular trailer house that they bought here this summer. They brought in an inspector that said that it did not have lead or asbestos in it, and you can tear it down and get rid of it where you see fit. Boy, that tickled me. So I don't know, may that if he come up with any kind of a comment on a demolition permit, that would be the first place to start, I would think.
Galen,
I don't know whether we need a permit exactly or not. I don't have a lot of thoughts on that at this point, but I do know that last summer there was a big problem with a demolition project on State Street that did pollute with smoke nonstop, day or night. Trash was allowed to blow. There was no perimeter fence, so trash was allowed to blow everywhere. It came down the creek. I even got it down the ranch. So it was bad. So I don't know the particulars, whether it'd be good or bad to have a demolition permit. I don't know what's involved in those, but I think smoke and trash ought to be contained somehow, even if we just require some kind of barrier, like those orange, what do you call those things? Orange
Like
things that go around the perimeter of what you're doing, so it would catch flowing trash. That wouldn't help the smoke from fires, but it would catch that.
okay. Tom, did you want to say something?
Yeah, this is Tom Gibb, and there's been about 3 things mentioned here. So what is my history in this? As a young man, I spent the winter of 1980 tearing down houses in the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And we would put in a bid, get a contract, and when we were done, they would pay us. There was a money up front problem. And the money up front was that we did pay a demolition fee. It was not large. We also paid a performance bond. It was quite large. So the items that we looked out for when we made that bid was, as been pointed out, what are the hazardous materials? And then when you, we also had to put up a containment fence. This served 2 purposes. This kept, people had to climb over a fence to get in. It contained trash and blowy stuff. And then the third requirement was on any given demolition site, you could burn everything you wanted to as long as you could burn it in 2 55-gallon drums. So you had 2 guys there. Every time your fire got a little low and you want to throw some more trash in it, by the time you were done with your job, you might have burned a dump truck load of wood, which would save you $70 down at the dump. Now, it was a toss-up whether or not the time spent filling those barrels actually competed with. So I guess my point is going to be in regards to hazardous materials, in regards to fire. The demolition fee, I think, should be quite small. And I think there should be a performance bond associated with this. The performance bond said that you will return this lot to a level state, and it'll look good, and you will throw grass seed and hay on top of it. And And then we'll come by and look at it, and you got it level, you got it cleaned up, there's no trash around. You get your, hey, you take your fence down, and then we'll sign you off and give us a check, which included the performance bond back. The demolition fee was like $35.
Yeah.
But the performance bond was like $2,000. Now, I'm not saying we should be that extreme, but my point is that you get enough money on the line, you'll keep things. Jesse's point about, and then the other thing is what's coming down. So if you got some shed over here that somebody can come under with a fork, pick it up, set it on a trailer and haul it away, what kind of demolition is that? If somebody can come in with a backhoe and split that thing in two and haul it out in two pieces and clean up that little bit of trash, what is that? I do not know how to word this thing up. Because we're covering a lot of ground. We're covering from log cabins down here that are still standing just because there's one stick stuck up against the side of it. So if anybody kicked that stick out, that thing's coming down. Well, then what's that? And so I do not have answers. I do know there are lots of questions, and there are several things to be considered. And one is hazardous materials, and the other is trash, and then of course smoke. And I'll quit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, while we've got it opened up, is there anybody in the public that would like to weigh in on this? Okay, I guess not. I'm not real sure. I'm sorry, I'm babbling. I'd recommend we need to do some more research on it before we try to do anything on it. Because I mean, Tom's brought up, Jesse's brought up a number of different items. Tom's brought up items. Gayla has two. That I think we need to research to figure out what do we want to do and how we want to do it. Is my opinion at this point. Anybody else, unless somebody else thinks differently and would like to pursue what the fee would be and what the permit would read and so forth, but I'm not comfortable with that.
I agree with that. We need to just wrap something up really simple to start with and kick it around the table. I know the state already requires, from my personal experience, the asbestos removal and the disposal of that. And I'm not sure about the lead-based paint. Some of that falls on the landfill as to what they'll accept. So there, I agree, we need to do some additional research on this before we get too far into it.
Jesse or Roger, you have any more thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to research it. I know that Gunnison County landfill has restrictions on certain things you bring out there. I know that they haul some stuff to Montrose. Probably all over the state of Colorado to get rid of certain things, old tires, various things. Yeah, it's gonna take a lot if you're gonna make recommendations to people that want to demolish buildings. We don't have much of a main street. The hotel is about the only thing you could demolish that would create much of a mess. A few residential houses here and there once in a while. I'm not sure this is something I'd lose any sleep over just yet.
And another thought that I had on just doing some more research on it is maybe looking very similar to what Tom brought up on the inspection part. Look at some various cities or municipalities around and see what they have for demolition process or permit policy. whatever it might be. Okay, so I'm gonna put that one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Jesse, go ahead.
after visiting with Mr. Bulch, I'll throw out some of the thoughts that he and I had kicked around. That there is a trend of lack of control. Gayla brought it up on like Fifth and State Street last year in the winter, as that building and old sheds were tore down, fell down, and trash and stuff. Those were his dermatology comments, but his real concern was smoke and noise and dust, and primarily related to the asbestos that might be burned and putting a bad toxic fumes in the air, or the lead paint. And back then, we possibly talked of a $25 fee for a accessory building, 50 for a house, and 75 for a commercial, which aren't very high priced. But I believe that the yellow fencing plastic that Gayla mentioned ought to be considered in the perimeter of the property where the demolition's taking place. All of these things are part of our research, and I'm definitely in favor of tabling till we get more information. Who you're going to put in charge of that to gather that information would be up to the vice chair tonight, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
That was called passing the buck, and I pulled away from the mic. I I don't have a problem getting online and trying to do some research if the board wants me to do that. If someone else wants to do part of it, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. Probably over the next month, I can come up with something as far as to see what other localities are doing, and maybe trying to draft something that we could start with.
Sounds like a good idea.
Oh, I thought
If you've got time and you want to do it.
thought you were gonna volunteer.
No, I'm happy that you want to. Unless somebody else wants to, they can fight for it.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a rough draft that in my possession that I kind of kicked around after visiting with our mayor. So yes, I'll work with you.
All right. And I mean, as I've come up with some ideas, I may toss them out to other zoning board members too, to see what you think and throw them back at me. Okay, then we'll consider that second bullet point on the demolition permit. We're gonna table it till we can do some more research on it. I'll head up the research and then get with various zoning board members. Third item is update of Appendix A on page 20 of the zoning code, International Residential Code. I'm going to start off with this one because I'm kind of the one that brought this up. Is that when I looked at Appendix A for foundation or framing, and that's all I'm going to worry about because electrical and plumbing, we let the state deal with that. But we don't state anywhere that I can find as to which international residential code, what version we're using or that we expect people to follow. Same thing with framing or foundation in international residential code. For curiosity, I think went to one of the building inspectors, or not, excuse me, one of the builders in town, and asked Phil which code they use. They said they go by 2018 when it comes to framing and foundation for international residential code. I think, Tom, did you say you follow 15 typically. 15,
12,
12 typically.
propagation, our value is 2 to 6 stones.
Okay.
It's upgraded from the 2 to 4 walls. But as I pointed out, these guys that are in the business, they stay up because this is, they stay ahead of the game.
Right, right. And I think both your architects and engineers, as well as majority of the contractors locally, stay 18 or higher. Probably more so now that Gunnison has gone to 21. So they may not be going that high on everything. But my thought or question was, do we need to state that somewhere of which minimum code that we expect people to use? I went just for curiosity to see what Gunnison County did, because I'd understood that they went to 2021. And I'm not by any means promoting that. So just don't misinterpret what I'm going to say. Kayla's looking at me like, holy moly. But what I thought it was interesting with Gunnison County is they did adopt 2021 for all of the different codes: mechanical, residential, energy, fuel, gas code, everything went to 2021. What they did that I thought was a good idea is they put that in a resolution instead of in the zoning code. So the resolution could easily be changed to update to newer codes if we need to in the future, where we don't have to open up the whole zoning code and rewrite the whole zoning code, or rewrite even that portion of the zoning code. I think it's easier. My understanding, it's easier to do update a resolution than a zoning code. Tom's got a look on his face that he wants to say something.
Yeah, this is Tom here again. I'll keep this a little shorter. So municipality may adopt whichever one of the other, but they can also tweak it.
That is correct. That is correct. Very valid statement. I did not print off the other 15 pages of their tweaking on each one of those codes. So good point. So back to Appendix A. And I understand right now in the current zoning code, we only have foundation and framing. Do we want to put in there at least which version minimum requirement is? Or do we want to put that in, ask the Board of Trustees to put it in a resolution rather than in the code? Because what I found the county did is when you go to look at the building codes on their website, they basically state the same thing for framing as they use the International Residential Code. But it's not till you go to the resolution that you see which version. It's not till you go to the resolution that you see which version that you must follow for the county. So I guess it's a two-part
speak to
question.
that? May I speak
Yes.
to that?
Yes,
Okay,
Roger.
just about everything in the county and Pitkin has to be engineered. It's got to have a Colorado engineer stamp on it. 90 pounds per square foot. Snow load in Pitkin, down in Parlin, it's only 45. There are tremendous variations as you move around the county as to what, framing and everything else is going to be. And that's why they require engineered systems. Yes, the code is fine. And if you can dig in there far enough to find out what you're supposed to do at Pitkin, Colorado, well, good luck.
Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up on Roger, Jess here, on our Appendix A, we have those 4 listings. And as Tom was talking earlier, especially sheetrock, for example, electrical and plumbing definitely ought to be pretty well finished, except for the the lids that go on the switches and the plug-ins and all those things before the sheetrock goes up. I think that the main thing that we want to keep it simple, if we do any adjusting to Appendix A, would be to address insulation and then interior and exterior sheetings, so that we don't get caught in a dispute like we are on Main Street currently. So again, this is something that our attorney is probably going to get to do a lot of research for the town of Pitkin in the next 5 years.
To your point, I think, to determine exactly, I think a resolution is a good idea. You could change that if we needed to, easier.
So the recommendation to the Board of Trustees would be along the lines of a resolution stating which building code addition we're conforming to, or we want people to conform to. Then the next question comes up. If we do a resolution, or have the Board of Trustees do a resolution, which addition do we want to follow for foundation or framing in particular? And then do we,
Is the 2012 one the one we're using now?
well, I don't know. That's what Tom said he's looking at. I guess when he's looking at the little bit of research that I did on it, and Tom, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, which I may be. But when I looked at 15 as an example for support walls, 15 only went up to 8 foot, maybe 9 foot walls. But the 15, 18, like 2018 goes up to 11-foot walls, I believe, or 12-foot walls as support walls. And my concern on that was if we're using 12 or 15 and someone wants to build something with high ceilings, then we're not using the proper code. I would agree if it's engineered, it's going to be engineered to the later code. So just throwing that out there. I don't know.
Jess's input from Phil Deutsch, conversation that you had, Mr. Pinalto, if he's happy with 18 and if his people he's building for are happy with 18, I would consider that one.
And that is what he said. He's building everything to 18 minimum. Tom?
Your point about, this is Tom, and your point about architects and engineers, that's really where your safety net is. If you got somebody putting up a 18-foot front wall and it's freestanding, it's all by itself, that engineer will have you at full size 2x8 engineered lumber on 16-inch centers with blocking every out, and it'll be right. And so we get some latitude here. We don't have to jump all the way to the front. We can say, this is what we're following, and if you're going to exceed this, you need to be engineered. So maybe that's one way to do it.
That may be a real valid point, is that if we go to, let's say 15 or 18, whatever you want to decide on, that if you have anything beyond that code, it's got to be engineered. Because right now, you don't absolutely have to have engineer drawings, do you?
Traditionally, this town has not had engineered drawings. The bigger the houses get, the more likely it's gonna get engineered.
Right.
These little summer cabins you see parked all over the place, there's some guys came in with a D-log kit and put them up in 5 weekends. Those never saw an engineered drawing at all. The only engineering that was done was at the factory when they ran these D-logs through the mill. I do know of several instances where someone said, I want to do a porch. Well, how many porches have we seen? How many plans do I have on my desk that show porches? And they're all engineered the same. Why can't I just take one of these and apply it? And so we've had a couple things like that have happened. And so no, not everything has to be engineered, but everything has to get looked at critically.
Yes, foundations and roof. Engineer stamps. That's what the county requires.
Okay, so what do we want to do with it? We're over an hour that we allotted for this. I hate to table another item after we've spent an hour on 3 of them, but I definitely like the idea of doing a resolution for the Board of Trustees to write a resolution. I think we need to have a minimum addition that we're gonna say that we're gonna use.
Since most, what we do anyway is recommend. If we send it to them to hash out, they'll figure it out,
To,
the Board of Trustees.
no, they won't. We gotta give them exactly what we want them to pass. I learned that the last time. They won't hash it out. They're gonna ask us our opinion of what version, what edition zoning board should follow.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're struggling between 15 and 18 codes for this recommendation to the trustees, correct?
It's either 12, 15, or 18 for foundation or framing, International Residential Code.
You shared the difference between 15 and 18 on the height of walls. Is that mentioned in 12? I've done zero research here on these, comparing them.
That was only a quick look that I took it on a difference of 15 to 18 is all it was.
Can
Galen,
I suggest that we have more time to review these?
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's
maybe
fine.
we need more time to look at the rest, at the code. We're gonna recommend one, have to be solid on that,
Right.
and we need to look at it.
I'm in agreement to Gala.
Okay. Roger, you okay with that?
Yep.
So who would like to research anything on the building, on the International Residential Code? The differences between 12, 15, and say 18.
I think we all ought to look at them.
Okay. Individually, everybody take a look at them, take
Yeah.
a peek at them, okay? I'm okay with that. If I can find a link or a website that would maybe show the differences, I would forward that out to everyone. Or if anybody else could find one.
I would appreciate you forwarding that link, Chairman.
I said if I could find one, I don't have one. What'd you say, Tom?
Be okay if I look too?
Yes, it'd be perfectly fine if Tom would look too, in my opinion. Tom could probably get to it faster than most of us can. Okay, so we're gonna table that one for more research as well. Got notes on it to look at as well. We've been well over an hour on that, so we're gonna leave the remainder of the items and move down to old business. And the first item on old business is an update from the town attorney regarding opinion on House Bill 22-1362 Energy Code. So I did forward to Eddie a request from the zoning board to send to the new town attorney his thoughts on the previous town attorney's recommendation. The mayor has told me that he has forwarded that to him. And we're hoping for an update on the next Board of Trustee meeting, which would be next Monday night. So that's where that one sits.
I would agree to table it then till March, please.
Yeah, that's just an update on where we're at with it. So we won't do anything else with it. But that will address more of our Appendix A for the energy code coming up. Whatever his determination is on that. Next bullet point under old business is an update regarding the open permit violations that are open beyond the 2-year time frame with no response for an update from the property owners. From our last meeting, I believe that was those 2 properties were to be forwarded to the mayor to have the Board of Trustees look at those to determine what the next step might be. And I believe the mayor is waiting for an answer from the town attorney on that as well.
Mr. Chairman, I did talk to our mayor about that to see if we could request it from the attorney, and we
Yes.
cannot. It needs to come from the mayor and or the trustees, so it's in his hands.
Okay. All right. And then the last item on old business is to discuss the updates on the building permit tracking. I have not changed anything since January 12th on the tracking. I know the January 12th meeting, Tom was not here for the meeting, so we might have some questions. Oh, and I don't know if you have this. So on the January 12th meeting, the only permit, the new permit that we had for 2024 was one that happens to be on my property. And it is near completion. Are there any other permits that have been issued in 24? Tom? I can throw an idea out at you.
One idea.
the hotel, the back porch.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I don't, now, that's in the works. I don't know that. I'll have to look that up.
okay.
It's been, everything that goes on at that hotel gets discussed 15 times. I'll have to look up.
If you would look it up and just shoot me an email of if it's been issued, the date, and I'll put it on here. That was one of them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, while Tom's at the microphone, prior to you going on your vacation, Tom, I asked you if you'd gotten a building permit request for River Street just above McCall's that Levi was putting on a mudroom or something like that. Did we follow up on that?
Levi's,
Oh,
project.
yes. Yeah, I got a verbal follow-up on that. We're gonna get that fixed.
Okay.
So that was basically rework the backboard.
Okay. So
But it's not, I don't have the paperwork.
you don't have to pay for
Check
it.
on it.
Okay. Just when you get it, just forward it to me, forward me the information. And I'll put it on here. That's the only two that I'm aware of, new ones, or 3 for this year. Does that sound correct? Okay,
Not much involved.
yeah, it's pretty
With that
fine.
hotel.
Right. Then under 2023, nothing different on Beery lots. I have a note here. This is back from December on Armstrong's, that porch on this deck. I have a note here that you were gonna look at that, but that was December 18th. Is that,
I walked over and looked at it. Said how many feet of snow on it, still up. It'll be fine. I haven't written an official okey dokey, but it'll be.
okay. Which code, what edition does that follow? Okay.
Mr.
man.
Chairman, wouldn't there be
Yep.
4 in the request on the hotel roof over the front deck? I don't know if that's still in limbo with a variance request or a permission from the trustees or anything there. You know, that's part of that deal that I asked earlier when we were in the minutes as to where it says where our jurisdiction as the zoning board of adjustment starts and stops. So that's some more clarification as far as I'm concerned, we need before we even proceed with coming to the zoning board with that one.
Yeah, that sits with the variance right now with the Board of Trustees. It should be on the agenda, I believe, for next week. And then once the variance is granted, then a permit would be granted at that point.
Thank you.
Uh,
Have you froze out yet and looking for a motion to adjourn?
Nope, not yet, not yet. I'm trying to jot something down here so I can remember to add it. As far as any other open permits, I don't think there's any updates on, I mean, hotel is obviously still going. Jake's covered patios, I don't believe I don't know that that's complete yet. I know Susie's garage isn't complete, there's no walls up on it yet. And then Wix OWTS for new build. I don't see anything else on 2022 permits that have changed that are open either.
Mr. Chairman, and Gayla, may I ask you, before you guys left on vacation, you sent me a text or email or something stating that Tom had visited with Dan Hoffelder on the container, and you said all it lacked was a receipt. What was you talking about as for a receipt, please?
He's nearly done
On,
on his container. Is that what we're talking?
yes, yeah, it is. But he's nearly complete on getting a permit? Or what?
I have to go verify, and this is an interesting question. I have to go verify setback. Now, you will recall that all of that side of town turned pink on our map, as in commercial,
Oh,
and this board has never addressed what that means on our lanes and alleys back there. Commercial has 0 setback.
good point.
You really need to get on this because this is going to be a problem child down the road. Just a thought. So with that in mind, sort of walking up the hill and looking at the location, if that is in fact the case, because Armstrong is quite wide, and that container is sitting in front of his house and not this way. So my perspective from up the hill is this container sitting in a fine spot. You probably don't need to go measure it, but I will. Once that's done, he's done. He's paid the fee. Applied for the permit.
Okay, so he's applied for the permit, okay, I follow you.
Well, Tom and the Board of Zoning members, nothing changed in the setback on lanes and alleys, even in business, did it?
I've got to look right off the top of my head, I don't know.
It depends on where it is. If it's at the front of the yard, then the setback is 0 feet in commercial. In commercial, I think it's 5 feet off lanes. Regardless of. Oh, no, it's different. Side yard, 5 feet. When adjoining roads or alleys. Rear yard, 5 feet when adjoining roads or alleys. And then the front yard is 0 in business. So it depends on where it's at.
You see with the snow clearance.
That's part of the issue. Yeah, that's part of the issue.
You need some clarification. Well, so
Clarification on,
So it's 0 setback on the front line of commercial.
yes,
Right. But his address is Armstrong, so if it's sitting on Armstrong, then he can have a 0 setback.
Right. My question becomes, let's say Sage Lane down there. That's also, all that stretch has been zoned commercial. Can you 0 lot line on Sage? We can't do anything else on any other part of town.
That part of Sage Lane, there are no front door addresses. So Sage Lane is not a front door for any of those addresses along.
for 0 setback,
So the trick is the front door address.
Right.
yes.
That
That's
needs
the
some
key.
clarification somewhere. It's
That's the
probably in
key.
there since you just read it. But I have not figured that out. Thank you.
So, okay, so that gives us some clarification on Hofffelder's. These two keep coming up, and I know we brought it up in January. Is Benbow's and Tennell's. As to what they, Benbow is a question mark, really what that was. And did we ever, I don't know that we
Did you
ever
ever find any old?
determined what it was for.
Yeah, so this is Tom again, and I don't know where he came up with the Benbow permit. I suppose they must have applied for one and it disappeared into a file somewhere. their request was to turn their little bitty house on those lots into a garage. And Jesse Garrettson and I went over and looked at it.
Right.
We said, no, the primary structure, you gotta have a primary structure before you can have a garage.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. So Ben Bose did not turn their little house into a garage.
Okay.
So it still looks just like it did. But with the exception that they did haul out a little 8 by 12 storage container. And it's a,
So really, my question is, do I take this on the tracking for Benbow? I know how it got on here, was Sarah told us that they had paid for a permit. That's all we knew about it. So do I take this and just, since they didn't do anything with the original house or shed or whatever, mark it as complete?
market is, I didn't, it never happened.
It never
They
happened.
had a plan, it didn't work.
Okay,
So whatever that is.
okay.
Then Chanel's,
Yeah, that was a shed with a question mark, and
It's done. It's been sitting there a long
that
time.
was, it was,
Yeah.
Chanel's, was never the name on that permit. It was, last night, it was a relative, sister-in-law, sister, something.
Okay.
So it was under the name of Mankiller. Not Chanel,
of what?
Mankiller. It's a good last.
Yeah, that's why.
And so that's probably why you had hardship.
But
It's
it,
in it.
but it was for a shed and it's closed. Okay. Okay,
Then,
that-
Mr. Chairman, on canals or tunnels, or how you pronounce it, Tom and I, the date of the permit being issued are pretty sure, probably what, 95%, Tom, that it was the portable shed that was brought in and possibly a little porch deck that was added to it. But this fall, I heard a rumor, and Gayla, you probably know if rumor has any substantiation, that they were wanting to try to split off the leach field and have their own private leach field. Is that correct, or anything ever developed there?
They are engineering their own septic system for their own property. So they will not have to share their neighbor's system any longer. So no, it's not just a soil treatment area, it's the whole system.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we don't need to worry about that until they ask you for a permit then either, do we?
Yeah, and then I don't think zoning worries about it. I think that's a Board of Health.
You're right, but we've been trying to run it along on our spreadsheet just so we could stay up to date on when something's finished or what they're doing, because Tom has to come in and check setbacks, right?
Not on OWTS. Unless I ask for help.
all right, that's all I've got on building permit spreadsheet. Tracking. Anybody else have any other comments on it?
I have an unrelated comment whenever this is wrapped up.
Okay,
I will not be here next month for the
or
meeting, for the zoning board meeting. I will be out of town.
is the date, do you know the date of the next, off the top of your head? I don't have the
I
calendar.
think the 11th.
Would be
It's March 11th.
in, asked for a reason, because I might not be here either. So you're asking for a stand-in secretary?
You do whatever you want to do. I'm not gonna be here. I will share though, that when I became clerk, the zoning board, and after I became clerk, the zoning board had its own secretary. So,
Oh, really?
so I'm sure that there are people willing to come in and take minutes.
And to add to that, on March 11th, I won't be here either.
Maybe we could reschedule.
I won't be here that whole week, but
I'm gonna be gone on the 15th to the
I've got-
22nd.
I'm
Unless
with
somebody
Gayla. How
knows-
about the Monday before?
the March 4th.
Army Day. It's a family joke.
Yes, the previous Monday is what I'm about, like on the 4th of March.
I am available on the 4th. I'll be here on the 4th. I've got to leave that weekend.
I am too.
You're here on the 4th?
I think I am.
Roger, are you available on the 4th?
Probably, just, over Zoom and nothing else, yeah.
You're available on the 4th, Ed?
Yeah.
So can I?
$64
propose-
question, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not positive. Let me get back with you on that.
Awesome.
So we'll tentatively move the meeting to March 4th. Hopefully Sarah will be available.
And Mr. Chairman, if we don't get any reports back from our attorney, we might just go to the April meeting. We're having to table nearly everything until we get some guidance.
I think that's a very valid point. Let's see what comes back from the attorney on next week. And then maybe we'll just push it out till April. All right, that's all we've got on the agenda. Anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn at whatever time you're posting.
Can you
Hey,
guys
Cory.
hear me? This
Yes,
is
Susan.
Susie. I had
ahead.
my hand up. I have a
Oh.
question. I've heard, well, I've had other people wonder about the same thing that I'm wondering about. The trailers that are, I guess that would be between 5th and 6th on State, where I believe at least one of them is occupied now. Is there a septic system there? Or what's the status of that? I guess this would be for Gayla, a question for Gayla.
There is no system to my knowledge. I think he's just, doing what he wants to do there. And I think people have asked him about it, but no action has been taken.
Well, I feel like that's pretty important for some action to be taken, you guys, because
I think
that's
that's a
right
board
on,
of health.
right on the creek. I just want to say that's a concern of not just me, but others that have mentioned it to me, and we're like, what's going on? How do because for years nobody was allowed to live in a mobile home in Pitkin, and most of them were supposed to have been removed years ago. But I think that's a real concern that should be handled either by the zoning board or the town. So I just wanted to.
I think it's a board of health issue and probably should go to the trustees type meeting for when they turn into board of healthers.
Yeah, so if
You would
I'm
like to
not
write a
part of-
letter addressing that to them, that would probably be good too.
if I
Okay.
were to write a letter, is that what you're
I don't know if you
saying?
need to, I just think it would help get it on the agenda maybe.
Okay. All right. I just, it's not only me that's concerned about that, but I think that's a real problem if there's no system and, I don't find that to be very good, that it's just been going on for months that I know of. So yes, I'll write a letter. Should I send that to Sarah then?
If you send it to me, I will get it to where it needs to go, Susie.
Okay, great. All right.
Kayla,
Thanks so
Kayla
much.
and Susie, this is Jesse James. Ramon Reed brought that up 2 or 3 months ago. And I checked with him and he has a composting situation there.
Okay, well, if that's allowed, I mean, if the trailer has a composting system, I know Ramon has a different kind of system too, but I mean, does anyone know for sure that he does have that?
It
I
wouldn't
mean,
matter. Susie, it wouldn't matter. All other water from the sink, from liquid, anywhere, would be considered, from the kitchen sink, it's considered black water. So he would still have to deal with that. And I doubt if there's an incinerator for his black water.
are you
Yeah,
talking about the trailer or what?
Yes.
I was told, but I never verified this, put my own eyes on it. But I thought he was using the gray water in an existing system that was in that previous trailer. But I've never been over there to see that.
I'm not aware there was ever a system there, but I have not been asked to look into it and I don't know.
I just feel it's something that either the zoning board or the town board or the Board of Health, whatever, should really check into. That's not okay if nobody knows what's going on and if that's just going down into the groundwater and then to the creek and, it's just not okay. That's my feeling.
Right.
So
Thank-
should I
thank you,
write a
Susan.
letter? Maybe I should write a letter and address it to the town of Pitkin, and send it to Sarah. Should I do that?
Yeah, Susie, if you are wanting a response from the Board of Health, I would suggest that, yeah, addressing the issue with the letter, and if you want to just send that to me, just let me know who you want me to send it to, and I will forward it.
Okay, all right, thanks so much.
Thank you, Susie. So we did have a motion from Jesse to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Ed is seconded. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We've got 5 agreeing that it's late. Thank you, everyone.
Jake, did you want to say something?
You want batteries?
Thinking about